Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
Welcome to the North Idaho College Public Forum. Today's a special day for us for a number of reasons. First of all, it ends the 32nd year of our show, our program, and we hope to be with you next week starting year number 33. In fact, today we are broadcasting the 1,591 show on this PBS series, and we're delighted to have been with you so long and look forward to being with you in the future. Our guest from last week is back to help us celebrate the end of the 32nd year. We welcome back to the program Monica Walters, who is the Executive Director of the YWCA in Spokane, where she has served in that capacity for almost 8 years. Monica's been a friend a long time, and Monica, it's so special to have you here as we close out the 32nd year.
Well, thank you and congratulations.
It takes some
record.
endurance.
That's wonderful.
But our viewers have been so kind to us over the years, and we appreciate their support. And as always, I'm happy to have our panel, Janelle Burke, who's an attorney in Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, who is the Director of Public Relations. And I would say to you, Janelle, it's been great to have you here 30 of those 32 years. You're also a person of great commitment and endurance, and we're happy to have had Erna on for her first year. Erna, welcome to the next 32 years on the program. With that, we will have Janelle commence today's questioning.
Monica, it's a pleasure to have you back this week. Last week's program, I asked you if you had a priority list of services that you were doing at the YWCA in Spokane, and you replied that indeed you did, and one of those was dealing with violence toward women. Right. Can you please tell us more about the programs that are associated with that particular service?
That particular service is one that has a variety of different components, so I'm glad you asked the question. First of all, we have our confidential safe shelter, which is, of course, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on an emergency basis. It's confidential because it has to be in order to protect victims who are fleeing emergent danger. We can access, or people can access, the shelter that need help through calling our 24/7 crisis hotline, 509-326-2255 or 326-CALL.
Let me have them put that up on the screen, if they will,
great.
Please, and then have you to repeat again for those who might be getting a pen or a piece of paper. So again, let's say that again.
Right. The women who are in imminent danger of violence can call 509-326-2255. That's 509-326-CALL. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A YWCA domestic violence advocate counselor will answer the phone. You won't get voicemail. You'll get a live human being who's specially trained in domestic violence advocacy to assist you in whatever you might need, whether that's just to talk or to get access to the shelter. We also provide free transportation to women who need to come into the shelter with their children. So that's one of the key areas that we provide services in domestic violence protection. We also have legal advocates that help women navigate the sometimes overwhelming and difficult legal system. As you're well aware of, Janelle, it can be overwhelming and intimidating to women who want to file protection orders, who need help understanding if there was arrest made of the perpetrator, what are their rights. So we have legal advocates that assist women in those areas. We also have a part-time attorney and a full-time paralegal who actually provide civil legal assistance to women. Maybe there's issues with child custody, with child support, with housing, or a variety of different things, dissolution proceedings. We also provide counseling, education, and outreach at our main facility at the YWCA in Spokane. So a lot of different services are there through our YWCA domestic violence program.
And I would take it that you also have some educational programs that go
Absolutely.
Along with those services.
Right. We try to do as much outreach and education to young people, to civic organizations, to the general community as we can, as many as we can afford to provide. It's always an area of challenge for us because there's such a need, and we sometimes just don't have the resources to go there. But we absolutely do want to provide as much education as we can.
Erna Reinhardt.
I want to follow up with that, Monica, in terms of, I think sometimes when we talk about domestic violence, we focus on the moms. Tell us a little bit about how you serve the children that are involved in those situations.
Right. And I want to also say that domestic violence is clearly misunderstood, because a lot of people think it only happens to certain people, those people. Well, domestic violence, unfortunately, is a plague that affects people across socioeconomic groups, racial, demographic lines, ages, etc. We've had women as old as 84 enter the shelter. We've had teenage moms or teenage single women who need help. The children are particularly affected by domestic violence, as we all know. They're traumatized by witnessing violence. We partner with Lutheran Community Services Safety Response Center, who provide child witness groups for the children that are exposed to violence. Work with other local agencies in Spokane. But the main thing is we have a children's group, and our special advocates work with the kids to help them understand that it's not their fault, that they can learn to trust adults and feel safe again, and really cater to the needs of those kids, just helping them express what's going on inside as they've witnessed some very terrible scenes of violence in their home.
I know here in Coeur d'Alene there is an agency that works directly with men in trying to break that cycle. Mm-hmm. Is there something like that in Spokane, or is there something that the YWCA does?
We don't work with perpetrators, but we will refer to other organizations that do that. Our work is not predominantly, always just with the victims and children.
Okay.
To carry out or extend that just a little bit, after all these years' experience you've had, there's so many kinds of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's verbal abuse,
right.
And sometimes verbal abuse doesn't get as much attention, but the mental scars that can
right.
be there can be life-lasting. Last week we talked about one of the great success stories you had, but just not getting back to that point, but what would you have to say to our viewers that are allies to victims, and also to try to prevent victimization in the first place? Just share some of the consequences of what that does to the human spirit when people go through that kind of violence.
Well, I think domestic violence, first of all, is oftentimes misunderstood. It's a cycle of power and control. It's not necessarily an anger management problem. A lot of people think it is. It's really oppression and domination through control. And, if a woman's been told for years and years that she's stupid, that she's, worthless, that she can't do anything right, and she might not have been struck, or she might not have been physically harmed, and although most of the time that is the case, it escalates to that point. You're right, Tony, the spirit is broken, the self-confidence, the self-esteem, the belief in herself and her ability to accomplish her goals is really taken away, and so a woman becomes very dependent and lacks that ability to make good decisions. We tell people when we do education that it starts as young as teenage dating oftentimes, and it can proceed throughout the years. We try and break the cycle by helping victims see that it's not their fault, that they didn't do anything wrong, that this is really, that the perpetrator owns the problem, you don't own the problem. There's a lot of victim blaming, why didn't she leave, and all of that sort of thing. And I think that it's very important for the public to understand that women are their best. Women decide the time that's right for them to leave. We never tell women as advocates what to do. It's part of what they're already getting all the time, is people telling them what to do that they can't decide for themselves. So our job is to support her in making the best decision that's right for her, and to let her know that there's help out there, that she doesn't have to feel alone. So that's, we could do a whole show, couldn't we, on how to stop the cycle of violence and how to help women and their kids escape that cycle. But I think you raised a really good point, that really the spirit is broken a lot of times, and that women need to understand that there is help out there, they're not alone.
One other follow-up question that's another form of violence, and I find this just heartbreaking. There are a lot of great parents out there, which is great news, but there are some parents out there that don't deserve the name of mother and father, and I've seen some cases where they've been so cruel to their children in verbalizing their lack of worth that they also break the spirit of that child. And I've had some of those children, even as adults, say to me that even though I know my mother or my father was very wrong in what they did to me, I have this burning desire to be accepted by my parents, and I never have. And that is just such a tragedy.
Yeah.
And you see that too, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, another one of our programs, in fact, is the Child and Family Care Program, as I mentioned, I think last week, works with children who've already been removed from the home. And it's sort of this last-ditch attempt, quite honestly, by the court system, by Social and Health Services and the YWCA to try to see if there's the capacity to reunite that family, to give the parents the skills that they need to parent effectively and to keep that attachment, if we can, before we decide that this is not working and the child should be permanently removed. We see all aspects of that. We see families who the parents themselves were abused as kids, and so they just lack the skills, and they really want to be able to parent. And then we see those who, as you mentioned, just really don't have the capacity to be good parents and shouldn't be allowed to raise that child.
And we're so thankful for all the great parents, because those children oftentimes just do such wonderful things because they've had so much love within the family. Janelle Burke.
Last week we mentioned that you have a staff of 94, I believe it is,
That's
and
right.
a $2 million budget.
$2.5
million budget. And so there are lots of things going on at the
Lots
Y.
of things, right.
One of those things, I'm sure that you have some excellent teachers who are teaching various kinds of short courses, perhaps, for betterment of people who are interested or need those kinds of assistances and skills. One of those maybe being something like a financial workshop for women. What kinds of workshops do you offer, or courses do you offer that would be for skills and assistance?
Well, we are right now actually working with community colleges of Spokane through the Institute for Extended Learning. We do a short course in the spring. They do at the YWCA, Pathways to Technology, offering support for women who are trying to get back into the workplace. They might be mothers who are transitioning off welfare, or TANF as we call it, and that's offered usually in every spring and sometimes in the fall. We're doing some financial literacy courses for women who need to start brushing up on how better to prepare themselves for economic independence and to help them with financial planning, that sort of thing. And then of course we do education for women on domestic violence, information, that sort of thing. We're not doing as much as we used to with respect to courses, but it's always an area that we could expand.
And do you have some health and wellness?
Oh, absolutely. I forgot. I'm sorry. Yeah. The aquatics, liquid force and power walking and those kinds of things. We did some Bloomsday preparation training in the spring. We do a whole range of aquatics and physical fitness classes as well.
Thank you.
Erna Reinhardt.
I have a specific question about parenting, because I know that when I was pregnant with both of my kids, I read as many books as I could, but there's still a lot that people can learn about being good parents. And I know that that's one of the things that you do are some parenting classes, and I think I commend you for that, because I think none of us know what we're getting into as we begin our family. So tell us about your parenting classes.
Well, those are in conjunction with two of the programs. One is the, as I mentioned, the Child and Family Care Program that focuses on very intensive work, almost one-on-one work with the families, and supporting them through home visits as well. And then the second program is the ECAP program, which is the Early Education Assistance Program for 3- and 4-year-olds, low-income families who need that support to get their children ready for kindergarten, for a successful launch into education. Work a lot with those parents to help them understand the importance of reading, early learning in the home, get them involved in understanding child development, and support their parenting in the home as well. So those are the two main areas that we do, parent education and family support. We have a program, early childhood education program at the downtown YWCA, and also one in Airway Heights. So we have another outreach out in the northern part of the county.
Awesome. Last question before we move on to Tony. How many people did you serve totally last year?
Over 25,000.
Awesome.
Over 7,000 women through our domestic violence program alone. and then through our aquatics and fitness and parenting and after-school programs for homeless kids, we do quite a bit of outreach. So we counted them up, and it's about 25,000 people that are touched by the YWCA on an annual basis.
Great.
That's just amazing. 25,000 people with a staff of 94.
Yep.
That there are colleges with far less than that, with much larger staff than 94, although there's differences in some of the
That's
things,
right.
but that is really amazing. I want to talk a little while about, I know it's based on fundraising, but you have an annual event that is so special, and I want to do this in several parts.
Okay.
You have brought to Spokane some extraordinary people, such as Coretta Scott King. First part of my question is, what does that do for the community? When I say community, I'm speaking of the Inland Northwest.
Right.
Because while they're here, they do interviews and they speak at the luncheon, and you are providing another form of really education. And why is that so beneficial?
Well, we've decided that there's really an important part of our mission, as you mentioned, Tony, which is to inspire the greater community with respect to issues and ideas, if you will, that help us grow and learn and enrich our community. And as a 100-year organization that's dedicated to women's leadership opportunities and opportunities for all our community growth, we think it's really important to yes, raise the money, but also use our fundraising as a vehicle to provide this education. We started it 6 years ago with Dr. Maya Angelou, who was a total inspiration.
Oh, yes.
And just a really an amazing, awesome experience for us to have Dr. Angelou with us. Didn't speak, but really performed her magic for almost 2,000 people in Spokane. Followed that with Dr. Coretta Scott King, who, again, her legacy of fighting for civil rights and for equal rights for people just speaks to our mission. We've continued on with different speakers, and we'll get to this year's speaker in a minute, but I want to also say that we use that as an opportunity to also honor local women of achievement. It's our Women of Achievement benefit luncheon. And it's very important for us as a women's leadership organization to take that time to not only bring inspiring speakers, but also to recognize the contributions of our own local women in providing leadership for our community. So it's really a wonderful combination of inspiration and recognition.
And it creates local, actually heroes that become models.
That's
and
exactly right.
Encourage other women to follow in those
right.
footsteps. And,
That's right.
And it's energizing to the community, and it creates hope.
Yeah, it does.
We're airing this program in September, and in November you have your next annual event, and I don't know how you do it, but you've got another extraordinary speaker coming in, and share with us who that is and how our viewers could get in touch with that event.
Well, we are honored and very excited about bringing President Mary Robinson to Spokane, the first woman president of Ireland. After her successful 7 years in Ireland as president, she was given the wonderful honor of High Commissioner for Human Rights for the United Nations. First woman, and not honor, but she was a working commissioner for human rights. She was the first United Nations emissary to go to Rwanda after the genocides. She was significant in her presence throughout the world fighting for human rights. She is going to be a fabulous inspiration to all of us, again, in keeping with our international and our national and local mission of elimination of racism and recognition of human rights as a huge issue for all of us. I can't wait to hear her.
But I'm a big
November 16th.
November 16th.
At the Convention Center in Spokane.
Right.
You can call a minimum of $100 donation.
Sure.
And you can call for tickets, 326-1190.
Let's do that again, 326-1190.
1190, the
That's
YWCA.
area 509, area code.
Right, extension 127. And that will be our luncheon hotline. And we encourage you to call and get your tickets early or make a reservation.
You sell out every year, don't
We
you?
sell out every year, and we're so excited about Mary Robinson. I think she's going to really inspire us in this troubled time of ours when we're in the midst of so much turmoil around the world. A woman of vision, a woman of hope, a woman who's who's been there and seen, the devastation of war and poverty, and help us to really see what we can do to make a difference in the world. I'm really excited about it.
And I have a bias here too. As someone who's coordinated for 34 years a lecture series at North Idaho College, and we brought people from all over the world too. And after these programs and symposiums, you really can see an impact and effect on many people's lives, particularly students who come up to you and share how, in fact, someone will say to you, it's even helped me determine my career or change my life course. And so I commend you for having such powerful people in Spokane. Janelle Burke.
You are wearing a very special pin today. Would you please tell us about your pin?
Well, the YWCA sells these pins. Of course, this is a pin that's called a house pin, and it was designed by Lucinda, a homeless woman who began her own business, really with the idea that she's going to sell something or provide nonprofits with an opportunity to sell these pins as fundraisers, and all of the money goes to support our programs. House pins support the homeless program. We have women pins that support the domestic violence program, and there's a whole series of these, and they're great gifts. They're wonderful marketing tools. You asked about the pin. I can tell you what, well, it's a house pin because we provide services for homeless folks, and the proceeds go to help those programs. So thank you for mentioning that. But they'll be on sale also at the luncheons. We try to cover all the bases.
And do you have programs, when you mention homeless people, some people who are homeless have problems with addiction, maybe alcohol, maybe drugs, and so forth. Do you have special programs for addiction as well?
We actually don't specialize in that, but what we do is when a homeless family comes to the YWCA, what we do is provide what we'll call wraparound services. If they're homeless because mom or dad has an addiction problem that's created a problem with poverty, we'll refer them to those services. If they're homeless because of domestic violence, clearly we help with those areas. If they're homeless because they just need support in finding work, we'll direct them to the work source and the different programs that help in those areas. So what we try to do is stay on top of who's doing what. And again, back to that networking thing, the collaboration of nonprofits these days is wonderful. And if we don't do it, we can usually find a phone number or a referral to who is doing that. So we try and always respond to the critical needs of the homeless families.
Erna Reinhardt.
I always like to ask a question about the future. Are there programs that you might be looking at adding to your repertoire of services in the next couple of years, or are there things that you want to do that you're not doing yet, but you plan to do soon?
I'm glad you asked that question. We're in the process of working on developing some ideas that will launch programs that focus on economic empowerment for women, and also the prevention of violence by doing education for middle school and high school students in the areas of healthy relationships, avoiding dating violence, and that sort of thing. It's starting as early as 6th and 7th grade for some of these kids. The economic empowerment is really critical. A woman can maybe get out of the relationship or begin to start a new path for herself, but if she can't support her family, oftentimes she's going to slip right back into unhealthy or difficult situations. So it's really critical for us, and we're going to be developing programs along those lines.
Awesome.
Since we have a very wide viewing area, we cover all of Idaho and portions of 6 other states, and our friends in Canada, British Columbia, and Alberta. What advice, with all your years of experience and expertise, what advice do you have to communities, maybe smaller or larger, that do not provide the kind of service you're talking about, like the YWCA? I guess what I'm really trying to get at is how could they start such a wonderful organization in their community? What would they have to go through to become a YWCA chapter?
They would, actually, we do have, at the region now, we have some support systems in place to provide technical expertise and assistance to communities who are interested in starting a YWCA. So what they would need to do is to call me at 326-1190, extension 138. That's my extension. I can direct them to our regional office and provide them with the how-tos of beginning a chapter, a YWCA affiliation, You know, again, our 100-year history, 90 women in Spokane began the YWCA of Spokane 100 years ago, and I suspect that a group of 90 women in any community can also begin a YWCA if they're committed to, or a group of 10, perhaps.
Yes, but the services are needed everywhere.
Absolutely.
It is an epidemic, really, in many parts
It
of
is.
the whole world.
And they may not be able to take on the whole range of
Right.
services that we provide, but they could start small and grow from there.
When I say epidemic, I'm speaking of the violence. And so
Absolutely.
I am going to give that telephone number again. It's 509-326-1190, and your extension is 138. And again, that is Monica Walters, the Executive Director of the YWCA. Janelle, we have time for one short question.
My short question has to do with a success story. Can you relate to us another success story? You gave one last week, and
Yeah,
so you have one.
actually,
this
I have
week.
another story of a young mom who came to us with the Child and Family Care Program. Her child had already been removed from the home due to suspected abuse, really neglect. She did not have skills. She was very angry when she came to us because she felt that the state had improperly intruded into her life, you know, and was very defensive as a young mom, really not knowing what it is that she didn't know. But I can tell you that after she was discharged from our program, she wrote a beautiful thank you note to the staff saying, you know, you believed in me when nobody else did. You taught me how to love my children, how to provide what they needed. You kind of peeled away at the defensiveness and the anger and the hurt that was there and built me back up again. And she said, most importantly of all, you gave to my children what they most deserved, a loving mother. And that was one of the most heartfelt letters I've ever had. Here's a young mom who got her child back, and that's a pretty wonderful gift.
What a great story on which to end the program. It justifies so much what you do, and we appreciate you so much, Monica. Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring this program to conclusion with Monica Walters, the Executive Director of the YWCA, I want to particularly thank, as we're ending our 32nd year, Jeff Crow, who is the Director of our productions, and also Andy Finney, who is the Executive Producer. They and their staff, which is very dedicated year after year, makes this possible. There are those behind the scenes that you never see, but I can assure you sitting at this table is not sufficient to carry on this program without their great assistance, and we are very grateful for what they do. As I indicated at the beginning of the program, we are ending our 32nd year, and we look forward to starting the 33rd year. We always love to hear from you and suggestions you might have about content or subject matters for the program, and we welcome those to us here at North Idaho College. Until next week, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart. Thank you again.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.